My dear friends, on the Do Roboty channel, we've published a brand new episode about the job of a modern locomotive engineer. But in the meantime, since driving that locomotive, we have met an amazing person, a train inspector, and we have decided to make a separate video with him, so now you can watch it. If you're curious about what the job of a train inspector looks like, in that episode about the locomotive engineer's work, we showed a small part of that job. And now here's a whole extensive video with a great person, so it's really worth watching.
The Dragon locomotive is special because it can practically pull anything. There are a few trains, so you can easily rack up 30 or 40,000 steps. It starts at about 7,000 and increases from there.
A warm welcome to you.
Hi, Marcin.
Wojtek, it's a pleasure to meet you. The job of an auditor?
The job of an auditor.
What will we be doing? What will we be checking?
Well, today we will be doing a technical inspection and a detailed brake test on a train consisting of 30 carriages. They are loaded with dangerous goods, so there will be quite a bit of work.
Your job requires a lot of walking.
Well, it's actually good for your health, so it's okay. First, we'll check how we connected the locomotive to the set of wagons.
I did that. So let's check it, okay?
So let's see if we have everything. The valves are open. I don't hear any air escaping from the coupling, so it's good.
You have some tools from your work. What are those?
This is a railway inspector's hammer. It's used for tapping wheel sets to check if they have any cracks. Alternatively, it can be used to check the brake system components of the wagon to make sure everything works and is as it should be. The train is coupled and my colleague Paweł, the driver, is currently checking the tightness of the brake system. It consists in the fact that for 5 minutes after the train is braked, the driver's main brake valve is set to the cutoff position. And the pressure drop in the train is checked. If there is no air loss within 5 minutes, it is perfectly acceptable. There may also be a drop of 1/10 of a bar, so 1 atmosphere, in a freight train, and that is also acceptable. If it is more, you have to go and look for a leak in the pipe to check why the air is escaping so quickly. And if at the moment the tightness test is completed, the train set is released. And at my command, the engineer will perform a service brake by releasing at least 1 atmosphere, that is 1/10 of a bar from the main pipe. And then we will go and check if all the cars in the train have braked properly, if they have responded correctly to the engineer's signal regarding the brake valve. Is Paweł there?
The train is coupled, just so you know.
I understand. Has the leak test been done?
Yes, it has.
Okay, in that case, let's brake for the test. And the train is stopped. Now I have to get my work tool back.
Here you go.
I would ask you to hold it, because the end of train signals have to go, as the name suggests, to the end of the train. And then we do a test by checking if all the brake pads have reached the wheel sets and if the train set has been braked.
Wheel by wheel.
Wheel by wheel.
To the very end.
To the very end, similarly on the other side. Aha. That's why you walk a lot, as you noticed. Right away, as I walk by, I check the security of the side valves, the marking of the wagon, whether there are any damaged elements, and whether the markings required by RID regulations are correct. We still have to verify this later with what's written in the bill of lading. And we can go now.
And you, by the sound, can you tell if it's as it should be?
Yes, at this moment we know it's braked because the sound of the wheel is dull, so-called, right? When we release it, you'll hear how it sounds when the set is already without the inserts touching.
Uh-huh.
And if that sound is metallic, crisp, kind of ringing, then everything is okay. If, even after the brake inserts move away from the wheels, that sound is still there, it means the wheel is damaged.
So if, for example, the 16th carriage has a different sound than it should, something is not working properly, what do you do then?
Well, in that case, unfortunately, that car has to stay at the station and be transported to the workshop.
That's a lot of work, disconnecting and reconnecting repeatedly.
Well, then we're already at least 2 hours behind schedule right from the start. If, of course, we have a shunting locomotive and a crew that can do it right after it's reported. Sometimes it takes a few hours before that carriage is removed from the train. And then you have to redo all the train documentation, you have to recalculate all the parameters. And only when you're sure that everything is okay can you send the train back out.
Unless the shift is already over?
Then a colleague will come and unfortunately we'll have to finish the work that we started. This is a very important thing because this is the date confirming the validity of the undercarriage inspection. And here we have the date confirming the validity of the tank inspection. If either one or the other is exceeded, then such a carriage also cannot go.
What is that?
It cannot be allowed into service. You have to read it literally in such a way that on October 10th of last year, the carriage was allowed into service after inspection, and its inspection is valid for 6 years.
Okay.
So from that date, we count 6 years, and in the year 2030, on October 10th, this inspection will expire. Here we have a stencil telling us about the brake system used. Here we have the Kroner brake system with a GP layout, meaning freight, passenger. It has the automatic brake force adjustment system. The maximum braking force is 60 tons. With the stencil, we check how the wagon is loaded. If we have an automatic brake force setting, then up to a gross carriage weight of 60 tons, we determine that its gross weight is its braking mass. Here we have the length of the carriage with buffers. Here we have its number consisting of 12 digits, its series designation. Here is the loading operations table, which tells us on which class of line and how much the carriage can be loaded at most. In our case, we're traveling on Class D, so they could load up to 67.3 tons of product into the carriage. With such a load capacity and an empty weight of over 22.5 tons, we can get close to 90 tons gross.
Per one carriage?
Yes, and despite that, this carriage can move at speeds of up to 100 kilometers per hour. With that tonnage, if it's a carriage without cargo, meaning an empty carriage, it can travel at speeds of up to 120 kilometers per hour. And in our company, such empty trains travel on, for example, line number 9 at those speeds.
Okay, so today we'll be pulling about 3,000 tons with our locomotive?
That might happen, but it will definitely be well over 2,000. The Dragon locomotive is known for being able to pull practically anything. It's probably one of the most powerful electric locomotives currently operating in Poland.
So no matter how many carriages we add, this train can still pull them. How is that possible?
With locomotives, it's like this. Every locomotive can pull anything, but not every locomotive can get it moving from a standstill. The most important element in the dynamics of a train's movement is for it to get moving from a standstill. Once it starts rolling, even a relatively weak locomotive is able to keep pulling it, right? But you need power at the beginning during the startup, right? To get all those thousands of tons moving from a standstill.
Sure.
So,
But there are probably limits on how many of those carriages there are, right?
in terms of length, yes. In Poland, these railway lines, especially on the new railway lines, are for trains up to 750 meters long. And that's already a kind of limitation that also determines the weight of these trains.
750 meters, so how many carriages is that? 16 meters?
With 30 carriages at 16.4 meters each, that's just under 500 meters, right? So here you could easily fit about 45 of those tankers.
Okay, so dear viewers, when you're standing at a railroad crossing and counting the carriages of a passing train, for example, and you're getting close to 40, you know there shouldn't be many more, and soon you'll be able to cross.
Well, it could be like that. There are carriers who, for example, have shorter carriages.
Okay.
So there might be more, right?
Yeah, because we're counting it by square footage.
In the maximum configurations.
You have to count the meters, you have to count the meters. When the train goes by, you count not the carriages, but the length in meters. Then you know that when it's around 700, the train is slowly coming to an end.
That's right. In Poland, it's absolutely doable.
So is your daily job just like it is now, or do you have other tasks as well? Do you have train after train during the day? Do you know how many trains you'll have and you just go through, check the condition, tap with a hammer?
As an inspector, well, it depends on the demand here. How many trains are running on a given day? Well, you know, the job of an inspector is a job in an equivalent working time system. which means 12 hours on, 12 hours off. So during those 12 hours, you can dispatch several trains like that.
So what do you do when there aren't any?
Usually in our company, we hire inspectors when we know that the train will be there.
All right, but you work 12 hours, so will you have more trains during those 12 hours today?
Not anymore today.
So what will you be doing?
I'll be at my employer's disposal.
Okay.
If my employer needs my services, then my employer will assign me more tasks. The inspector is at the employer's disposal for 12 hours, and during this time he or she simply performs the tasks he or she is assigned to. I work every day as a carriage specialist, and since I also have inspector qualifications, I perform inspection work here as needed. Additionally, I also have advisor qualifications for the transport of dangerous goods by rail, so my range of duties here is a bit broader, at least for me, than just strictly inspection work. As an inspector, I would only perform those specific tasks. Well, there's a lot of walking in general.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
So,
You could probably use, like a Segway or something,
actually probably not, because I'll say this, in today's times where work is mostly sitting in nature,
You're actually right, it's worth taking a walk sometimes.
it's worth taking a walk sometimes, and today the weather is really nice for us, so...
It would be even worse if you had to do it during a snowstorm.
And that's exactly the point of this job, that no matter what the weather conditions are, the train still has to be inspected and dispatched. So whether there's a snowstorm or a downpour coming, you just have to get the job done. If it's a good day and there are a few trains, you can easily hit 30 or 40,000 steps.
Easily. Wait, let me tap it once and see, just to check if I hear anything.
Go ahead, listen.
The sound is just a sound to me.
I suspect that's because
I don't know much about that.
you do not have the experience yet, and auditors with many years of experience can actually find a lot of things just by listening when it comes to defects. It's also the case that if auditors already have many years of experience and have, for example, a setup like here with tank cars, and you walk and talk like we are now, which basically shouldn't be the case because it distracts your attention to some extent, but experienced auditors already have it like that. Even if they miss a defect as they walk on, they sense in the back of their mind that something may have been wrong earlier. And they come back and take a closer look. And most often it looks like this. Breaking the pattern is already like a little light bulb in your head that says something here needs to be checked more closely.
And at night, when the trains leave and they have their own time for inspection, then someone also has to do it, right?
You work 24 hours a day in 2 shifts. So day shift, night shift, day shift, night shift. It's like this. We have a system of 12 hours during the day, the next day 12 hours at night, then 2 days off, and then it repeats again. The whole cycle goes on like that all the time.
Okay, but here, do the trains only leave from the base in Gdynia, your company, or...
No, when it comes to the Tri-City area, we have several points from which the trains depart. They leave at different times, they leave on Sundays, they leave on holidays, so...
Okay, but if a train arrives and leaves Silesia, will a different inspector check it there? Is that inspector from your company, or how does that work?
Yes, when we have a return train. From the other side, there is always an employee assigned with whom we have a contract, and he provides these services for us.
Okay, but an external one, right?
Yes, it can be external, or it can be like me, meaning employed full-time. So nowadays we have a lot of audit firms that provide such services on the market. So a company that deals with transportation doesn't necessarily have to employ auditors full-time, because they can hire them from a specialized company that provides such services.
How do you become an auditor? Are there special auditor schools or something?
No, here you do need to have some knowledge, and you also need to have certain education, which is specified in the regulation on railway positions. In addition, as of today, you have to complete an auditor course, which lasts about 4 weeks, including all the supervised work and so on. Then you take an exam, and after passing that exam, you get the necessary qualifications, and you can then work as an auditor. So it's quite a responsible job, because the auditor and the train driver are 2 key positions that make sure everything runs safely and that there are no malfunctions, or at least that no situations occur that could threaten the safety of railway traffic.
And when it comes to, let's say, your payment, is it based on the number of trains you check, or is it a monthly rate? How does it work?
It depends on what the contract says, right? Because you can have an employment contract and then of course you have a fixed salary, right? It is then connected with the employment contract plus some bonuses for working at night or overtime. And when it comes to audit firms, well, it's different there, right? There it depends on the number of trains, the number of hours, on many factors.
On the number of carriages, meters.
Yes, depending on how someone signs the contract there, when it comes to financial terms, that's what they get, right? However, train drivers win here when it comes to rates because this is the most prestigious position. But inspectors, I'll say this, if they have the right approach to work and the right negotiation skills, they're not left behind either.
Okay, unless they're at the back of the train like we are now, then they might stay at the back, but not for long, because we'll be coming back again soon.
We're at the end. Before we put it in, we have to check by standing to the side
Aha.
if our bumpers at the end are properly seated and if they won't fall off along the way. Because they are such a massive part of the carriage, if they were to fall onto the tracks, which could happen, they could cause a derailment of the train coming behind us. So we always have to check and we always have to stand to the side, because if the spring is damaged and it falls out, we could end up on the emergency ward.
Okay, we wouldn't want that.
We wouldn't want that. What we have are end of train signals, which have to be properly installed so that you can tell where the train ends.
All right, let's put them in.
And now we have to go back the other way. Ha 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 ha.
Well, another 700 meters ahead of us, my friends, so let's head back.
All right.
Oh man, you can't see the end. You can't see the end of this train.
We also have to check if all our pistons in the cylinders have come out properly and if they don't have too much stroke. There is also a regulatory limit here that if the piston sticks out of the cylinder more than 150 millimeters, which is more than 15 centimeters, that's already improper, and you would have to disable the brake on such a carriage and report it later for workshop repair. So here we really have quite a lot of things to check from a technical point of view. We also have to check whether amateur artists haven't painted over important carriage markings, such as inspection dates, lengths, or other important elements of the carriage's labeling. Because if we have a situation where, for example, such graffiti is painted over here, we wouldn't be able to determine the inspection date of this tank. If it's only on one side and visible on the other, we must mark the carriage with a Zoruka sticker, meaning do not load. If already loaded, we have to send it for repairs after unloading. Such graffiti must be removed and the carriage must be restored to its original condition. If, for example, this inspection marking is not visible from both sides of the carriage, then such a carriage can no longer be used. It must be taken out of service immediately. The graffiti is removed, all the markings are restored, and only then can the carriage be put back into service.
Are there different inspector levels, such as junior or senior inspector?
On the old railway, you could say so many years ago, that's how it was. There was the position of inspector, senior inspector. Well, the senior inspector was a position held by a person who managed the whole group of inspectors, right? Now there's no such thing anymore. Up to a certain point, there was still a division where there were freight carriage inspectors and passenger carriage inspectors. Because that's also a big difference when it comes to the construction of the carriage, right? And the things you need to pay attention to. Obviously, here there's no lighting, no electrical installations, no ventilation systems, no air conditioning or anything like that. And the inspector also has to pay attention to all of that during the technical inspection. And right now there's the position of rolling stock inspector, right?
Okay, but if you didn't have, let's say, those extra things you do like office work and what you mentioned earlier, then there wouldn't really be much room for development here, let's say, in the inspector's job. Your pay doesn't really change. If you earn a certain amount now, you'll make about the same in 2 or 3 years. Because you don't have the opportunity to do more or to earn more.
It's the same here, just like with a train driver, right? It looks the same. A train driver also reaches a certain level, either in terms of years of service or the rate they work for. And it's not like it keeps increasing forever. Development is based on the fact that inspectors get additional qualifications.
Oh, so it's possible. All right.
So for example, they get shunting qualifications, then from shunting they get switchman qualifications. So not only can they perform technical inspections and brake tests on trains, but they can also assemble them.
So the scope of work changes.
Yes, at this point they can already assemble these trains, then inspect them, finally perform the test and dispatch them, right?
And live like that.
And live like that, just like I said. Well, quite often it's like you always have to find a golden mean between work, earnings, finances, private life and rest.
So there must also be time to spend that money and not just
Exactly.
18 hours at work.
You can't be at work for 18 hours here on the railway. This is strictly enforced, and those 12 hours of work are already the maximum amount of working time allowed. In a given month, an employee can, let's say, do some overtime, but that would count as a separate workday, right? There's no such thing as an employee coming to work at 7 in the morning, supposed to finish at 7 in the evening, but actually finishing at midnight or later, right? Things like that don't happen. Engine drivers and inspectors also have something called a weekly break, which means that every week they must have 35 hours of uninterrupted rest. So here it also works in such a way that, for example, they can't work 4 Sundays in a row. So that's all regulated by the rules.
That you supposedly work for a private company, but the regulations are general for the railway?
That's right. It doesn't matter if it's a private carrier or a PKP group carrier. The rules are the same everywhere, right?
My watch told me that it's great that I'm moving and that I've already done some of my training for today. The distance is 0.6 kilometers, but that's probably from the end of the train, so we did walk a bit.
Today that's still about 2.5 kilometers for sure.
Be sure, dear viewers, to leave a thumbs up under this video if you liked it, if you found the work of the inspector interesting, and if we finally showed it on the Do Roboty channel, then definitely leave a comment and a thumbs up. It would mean a lot to us because Marcin really talks about this job in a very interesting and specific way.
Unfortunately, it's not as nice as on the road where we're driving and there's a McDrive at a station like Chu,
Yeah.
where we can stop, do something, order something and eat.
Here, if we don't take sandwiches with us the first time and we're traveling somewhere for, say, 10 hours or 8, then no one is going to bring us those sandwiches on a freight train.
Well, unfortunately not. All right, Mr. Powell, we can release and we'll go on another trip, this time in the other direction.
To get to ride, you have to do a lot of walking.
Exactly, to get to ride, you have to do a lot of walking. So let's walk casually, we have to get to the end. And at the end, we'll check if we have air pressure in the last carriage.
But we don't tap anymore now, or do we still have to?
We tap because the sound will change slightly. So now we'll be able to assess,
If there's a difference?
is there a difference? And we first have to wait until the whole carriage loosens up. Because look, we have a loose one. And now the sound will be like this.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely different. The sound carries differently. The last one was muffled. This one feels more grandiose.
Yes, we can see that the carriage has loosened up because the cylinder has retracted.
Okay.
The piston is in the cylinder, so it's already loosened. There is also a little ribbon on this piston rod, and when the handbrake is engaged, even though the piston is retracted into the cylinder, the rod will still stick out, and there will be a red or orange ribbon indicating that even though the wagon is pneumatically released, it is still mechanically braked with the parking brake.
Okay.
We can pick up the pace a bit so we make it to dinner on time.
My dear viewers, this video about the work of an auditor was made while creating a video about the work of a freight train driver, so check out that other video. The episode is linked in the pinned comment. The link is in the description and also appears here, so click there. This is a very comprehensive video about the work of a train driver, an updated video, because we're riding a modern locomotive. It's worth watching, and of course watch this video about the auditor all the way to the end.
We're almost at the end. We can see that all these carriages have released. You can hear it, may I? Because it's going to get really loud. Now I'll check if the pressure is reaching here. If we have air at the end of the train, I'll release the air, the carriages will automatically brake, and if everything is fine and the air flows from the engine to the end of the train, this carriage will release again. Watch out, it's going to be loud.
Because here you see it's important to say that the brakes on a train work the opposite way, right? I mean, it is the opposite compared to car brakes, for example. Because here when there's no pressure, it brakes, right?
Yes, a drop in pressure causes braking and then it's stopped. And we wait until it releases. Here we can see that the piston is slowly retracting. And now it's retracted, so we know we have air and that the carriage has released.
And now, when we have pressure built up throughout the whole train,
Yes.
the wheels are released, but if there's a pressure drop or a brake, it still won't move.
Yes, because either the carriages would be slightly braked or completely braked. We also sometimes have carriages that are specialized and have two different systems. A system with air couplings, right, which are marked in red, but they also have so-called working couplings, and those are then marked in yellow. To avoid mixing up the couplings, the heads of these couplings are mounted in reverse. So there's no way to connect the wrong hoses, and this working hose has increased pressure. For example, it operates the carriage's unloading devices. For example, we have some specialized carriages for unloading aggregates or something. So they power those devices then.
And we've got it.
And we've got it.
So, dear viewers, to be honest with you, we've walked 2 kilometers and taken 2,500 steps. I think we've circled this train, this whole set, about 4 times, so we've done quite a bit of walking.
Mr. Driver, the brakes are fine.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to the other cabin to do some paperwork. I'll be right back. We have the documents ready.
We walked around earlier, so now it's time for some office work.
A bit of math.
Right, a lot on the calculator. What were you calculating?
We have listed in the bill of lading what our loader loaded for us, right? So here are all the cargo weights that are in the carriage. I had to copy them into the R7 document. And for each carriage, I also had to add the weight of the carriage itself. So I would get what's called the gross weight, meaning the cargo plus the carriage. And that's our final value, meaning each carriage falls somewhere around 89.8 tons. So each of these wagons weighs just under 90 tons gross. So I had to add them all up because we need to have the total length of the train, which in our case is 492 meters, since we only have 30 carriage. We have the cargo itself weighing 1,946 tons, just the fuel. Then we have the weight of the carriages, which is 679 tons, and together they weigh 2,626 tons. And that's the mass of our train. With the locomotive, it's 2,739 tons.
Is all this knowledge just for paperwork, or is it something more?
We need all this knowledge to calculate whether the required braking percentage, which comes from the timetable, is met, and whether this train will stop where we want it to stop. Because obviously physics is at play here. The faster we accelerate a larger mass, the more force we need to stop it. And we always want to stop it at a designated spot, not wherever it happens to want to stop at the moment.
It's worth noting that today is beautiful, and it was nice walking those 2 kilometers. But if you had, say, 700 meters of such a train and there was a snowstorm, rain or whatever, well, you have to go there and then you have to come back here and count it, let's say, wet, cold and frozen.
That's right. Well, now there are some, in our company it's there too, but for example, I don't have it because I don't work permanently as an inspector. But there are special programs that make this counting easier for us. So when I enter the data, it adds up automatically, right? And we also have a brake test card where we record all these calculated values and we check if our required percentage, which in our case is 60%, is maintained. Well, with our range, we have 66% actual, so the actual percentage is higher than required, which tells us that the braking efficiency is sufficient to operate this train.
So when we start moving, we'll also be able to stop.
That's right.
And in the right place and at the right time, just like at the beginning when I approached this job as a train inspector so casually, just tapping the wheels with a hammer and that's it. After all the information you've given us and all the knowledge you have in your head, I have a lot of respect for this job and for what you have on your mind, on your shoulders and what you have to do here. We talked earlier about how to become a train inspector and about the pay rates, that they're, let's say, decent for a train inspector and that the earnings are good. But what are the ranges? Even for a train inspector who works in any company?
It's hard to say exactly, but it definitely starts somewhere around, let's say, 7,000 zlotys and goes up from there. And the more experience you have...
Gross?
No, net.
Net, I understand.
So the thing is now that at this moment, depending on the number of licenses, depending on the number of trains, depending on the company, these are individual matters. But it's not like the inspector earns little, the train driver earns a lot, and someone else earns differently. These are individual matters. But these are not earnings that would make me say that I'm earning badly.
Sure, that's important, but the knowledge you have here and what we discussed earlier is worth developing. Because you can also add those intermediate topics that increase your earning opportunities, so it's really worth getting familiar with them. There will also be a link to Olavion in the description. As an auditor, for example, you can start working here and see how it looks from the inside.
You can. Okay, at this point we have finished the documents. I'm going to the train driver now. I have to enter the train number we'll be taking, and the train driver has to confirm with his signature that he accepts the conditions I've presented to him.
Because it's almost 12 o'clock, my friends.
So we finished exactly when we were supposed to, 1 original plus 3, I think 3 copies left in case. I'll take number 7 and go to the car. I'm heading to LCS, and you can report and say that I'll get there. Alright, so thank you very much. I'm going to get changed, and when I'm about to leave, I'll knock.
Thank you for sharing your extensive knowledge with our Do Roboty viewers. I'm truly impressed.
Thank you very much. I'm leaving you here in good hands, so good luck, Paweł, and see you next time. Take care. Bye.
My dear friends, I'm glad we got to meet Marcin. This episode came together quite unexpectedly and was pretty much improvised. Marcin's vast knowledge inspired me to create additional video content just for you, dear viewers. If you haven't seen the episode about the train driver yet, the fresh one, new one in that beautiful locomotive, then click on that episode. Here you can watch the entire material about the work of a train driver and leave a thumbs up under this video.